Hi, welcome to Junkwax Junkie, where we love Junkwax more than JoJo loves boomerangs. I'm Matt, and this is Andy. She loves my comedic value here. And today we're going to talk about one of the better sets of the Junkwax era, the 1987 Fleer set. Now, before we get started on that, I want to talk a little bit about how Fleer numbered their system and how they did their cards. You may have noticed on eBay and stuff, there's a lot of Fleer team sets that are available from the Junkwax era. And one of the reasons behind that has to deal with how Fleer numbered their cards. How they would do it is they would take each team and they would choose around 25, sometimes as much as 29, maybe 30 players from the team, and those are the ones they decided to make the cards with. And then they would take their players and they would put them in alphabetical order. And so they would take the team that won the World Series, and that would come first in the set. So the Mets won the 1986 World Series, so they come first. Rick Aguilera is number 1 in the set, Mookie Wilson number 25. Then it goes to Tony Armas at 26. Then they would have their worst team, the team with the worst record in Major League Baseball in 1986. That happened to be the Pittsburgh Pirates, who were just an awful team that season. They were just terrible. And they're at the very end of the set. But then what also would come after they did all the team sets, they would do a cool series of individual players. Like this is Youthful Power with the all-star Pinky Gaviglia with Jose Canseco. Or 300 career wins with Don Sutton and Phil Niekro. Or they would just take 2 random players that I think ended up in a picture together. Like this is a cool one. 2 great stars of the Junkwax era, Wally Joyner and Jose Canseco. And it would have those 2 players that would be together in a picture. You ever heard of Jose Canseco?
Nope.
Exactly. So sometimes too, like the Magic Mets. Have you heard of the Mets?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes, they are a baseball team. Where do they play?
New York.
New York is correct, and this is actually a cool card in the set. If you're a fan of the Mets at all, and by the way, a good book to read is a book called The Bad Guys Won, about the story about the 1986 Mets. Even if you're not a reader, you'll probably find the book pretty cool. Here's a really cool picture of the season highlight of Bob Horner when he got 4 home runs in one game, which is kind of cool. But they would also have key rookies at the back. They'd have all these key rookies, and the key rookie card from this set at the time was, one of the key rookies was the Kevin Seitzer, and they would put him with some other player. This case, they put him with John, what does that name say?
John Stepero.
John Stepero. Obviously not a Hall of Famer. Now, it's some more interesting stuff about this set is when you went to your baseball card store, you would see all the stores up, and we know about economics, right? We talk about economics.
Yeah.
The less they produce something, the more worth the set has. Well, I noticed when I went to a baseball card shop in Mexico, Missouri, that all the other cards were 35 cents a pack, and these were 70 cents a pack. Now, why do you think they automatically went up to 70 cents a pack?
Because they were worth more?
That's right. And why were they worth more?
Because they were better players?
That's a good guess, but not because they were better players, but because they were scarce. Is all of a sudden, Fleer had announced that they were going to cut their production because they were on the verge of bankruptcy. And so they were going to stop producing their cards. Whereas most card companies produce their cards throughout the summer, Fleer announced that they were going to stop doing it right around mid-June. So that has a big effect on this set. And an interesting part about this set, if you go on eBay, you see Topps 87 top sets for $5 or whatever. This set typically goes for between $20 and $30. So it's actually, compared to other Junkwax sets, it holds its own. A few key other things about this set, like I'm going to use this Tony Armas as a good example. A star from the 1986 Red Sox. Not only would it have its stats on the back, but you would see cool little statistics on the bottom for the hitters. And it would show like whether they were a dead ball spray hitter, where their strike zone was, and that was kind of a cool thing to have at the bottom. Now for pitchers, it was different. For pitchers, it would talk about their pro scout report, and it would talk about how effective their different pitches were. And so it's got them all located on the bottom, which was actually kind of a cool thing. It was something that the other teams didn't have, which was kind of neat. Now, I'll go ahead and give our scale on this set. The first one is the card quality stock. And actually, the stock on this one is not too bad. It's got a good little kind of, it's not, the best compared to like cards of now, but for that era, they were pretty good. They also had a nice little gloss on them that the other sets didn't have, which makes it a pretty nice set comparatively. So I give that an 8. Photo quality. They actually have really good pictures in there. And just like the Junkwax era, some pictures aren't very good. Some are, it kind of depends on the photographer, but that's how it was during film. Did you know that you used to have to use film to take pictures?
Like a Polaroid camera?
Yeah, kind of like a Polaroid camera. You needed to put film in it. So the next one is photo quality. Well, the actual pictures themselves, especially compared to today, the photo quality, I'm giving that a 5. So it's pretty average for the era. Design. The design of the 1987 Fleer set was actually very eye-catching. I don't know who came up with this idea, but they had the blue border around them, which actually, I don't know what it is about it, but it was like a faded kind of blue, darker blue to the top, and then it would fade down to white. And it actually was kind of a cool effect. So I give the design a 6. Key cards. Obviously, the key card is a guy by the name of Bo. What's Bo's last name? Jackson, Bo Jackson, who had burst on the scene. And it's strangely enough, if you go on eBay, you can get a Bo Jackson card for higher than most cards from that era, because they'll usually run you about $1.50, $2. If it's mint graded, obviously it's more. But that Gem Mint 10 Bo Jackson has kind of become one of the hard cards to get from that era, which makes it, if you've got a really good Bo Jackson, it's actually one of the few cards that are worth getting gem minted. So the design, I gave it a 6. Key cards a 6. Now the crash effect, I gave that a 7. It was a strange thing after the crash happened in the early 90s, that this set lost its value like any others, but it only lost about 40 to 50% of its value. The highest it was probably around $70, depending if you got a Tiffany set or whatever. But now, even after that, the set still would run you about $40 if you wanted one. But the 87 Fleer set still has a pretty good demand, but I gave it a 7 on the crash effect, also a 7 on the staying power. Of all sets from 1987, it's the Fleer set that is probably the only one that still has some kind of demand to it. And even if you look on price guides, a lot of times the commons will run you about 4 or 5 cents versus like trash quality with particularly the tops and definitely the Donruss. So the staying power held pretty good. So that means a card quality stock is an 8, photo quality 5, design 6, key card 6, crash effect 7, staying power 7, which gives it a grand total of, what's 8 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6 plus 7 plus 7?
39.
39. Got a mathematician here. That means this has a 39, which is one of the better cards from the Junkwax era. And if this is definitely one of those things that if you see it at a garage sale or something like that, it's kind of a cool set to pick up. The other set, you can't really say that about a lot of the other Junkwax cards. Okay, make sure that you subscribe, and like this video. Thanks for watching. More videos are coming.